Joining us from Westminster now is Angela Rayner, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Very good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning. Can I just check, did you watch last night?
I watched some of it. I was watching the England game before, but I did see Keir and Rishi Sunak.
OK, they weren't on at the same time, though, so you could have watched one and then watched the other.
Well, I was travelling from the pub back home, but I did watch Keir and I did watch Rishi Sunak. They were the last two on.
OK, so we've gone through a little logistical...
That's an honest answer.
OK, yes, which is good. That's exactly what we want this morning. The reason I asked whether you watched Keir Starmer particularly, your party leader and the man who would be Prime Minister, is that some people have scratched their heads when he's asked questions about Jeremy Corbyn. And the issue around this is trust, ultimately. This is what is the important issue that this relates to. And some people are confused or not clear about the idea about why he backed Jeremy Corbyn to be Prime Minister if he never thought he could win. And Sir Keir Starmer has explained this in the way he does a few times, and people, to a degree, some people, and you could see it in the audience last night, still not entirely clear how that relates to saying what you mean and doing what you say.
Yeah, I mean, like Keir, we both served in the Shadow Cabinet because we wanted to put an opposition forward to the Conservatives, and that was our duty to do that. Me and Keir were both in the 2015 intake, and it's fair to say that the wheels fell off politics a little bit over the coming years after that, and we wanted to put forward a robust case and push for a Labour government, and we both tried to do that. But it's also very clear that we got hammered in 2019. The British public rejected Labour and felt we didn't put a case forward for the country. And that's why Keir, when he was elected as leader, said we can't carry on like this. We have to change the Labour Party. We have to put a credible, costed plan forward that can change Britain for the better, because we've seen the disaster that we've had over the last couple of years under the Conservatives. And that's why I think he's a little bit uncomfortable, because in 2019, we failed the British people by not putting a credible government forward, and he's determined not to ever do that ever again. Again, on the trust thing, so I do a compare and contrast for you. The notion that at the moment there are senior Conservative politicians saying we're probably going to lose ahead of a general election, and yet we didn't hear you saying that, because you clearly thought it, and Keir Starmer has said he knew it, but he didn't say it out loud, which goes back to the issue of trust. Well, again, in terms of trust, I mean, we've seen over the last couple of days Conservative MPs betting for a general election and doing all sorts of really dodgy deals. We've seen that over the last couple of years under the Conservatives. Keir's changed the Labour Party and has put forward a credible programme. And, you know, none of us wanted to lose in 2017 and in 2019. I was pushing really hard for a Labour government, and to be honest, we've seen the disaster, what happened when we lost, and that's why Keir's very clear that we can never put forward a programme ever again that the British public can't vote for, because the British public ended up with Boris Johnson, and we've seen the disaster of what happened under Boris, under Liz Truss, and now the unfunded tax commitments that Rishi Sunak is putting forward, which will take us back to what Liz Truss did and crash our economy again. OK, I want to go back to the issue of trust, if I may, and this is specific to yourself, because you may well become the Deputy Prime Minister. It becomes more and more relevant. We go back 4 years, and this is a tweet that was yours. You said the obscene and inhumane two-child cap must go. So you said that. Keir Starmer's decided not to scrap the two-child benefit cap. So how do we square those two things about what you said then and what your party is doing now relating to trust? Charlie, that's a really fair question, and Keir Starmer hasn't said he doesn't want to do that. He said we have to have a fully costed manifesto. Now, I accept that. I want to see a child poverty strategy, and if I'm Deputy Prime Minister, we'll be pushing really hard on that, because I was a child that lived in poverty, but I went to school without a breakfast in the morning. Labour's committed to having free breakfast clubs for every child at primary school, which I think is incredibly important and will help alleviate some of the challenges that children face and families face around work as well. But we can't do everything. 14 years, the Tories have crashed the economy. We have a high-tax, low-growth economy. We've said our priority has to be to grow the economy, and we've set out the proposals to do that so we can pay for our public services. And then we can look at reversing some of the disaster of the last 14 years. But we can't do everything overnight, and that is about trust, and that is about honesty from the Labour Party about the constraints that we'll inherit if we win the general election on the 4th of July.
Well, you say you can't do everything overnight, and therein lies another issue. And I go back to the issue of trust. The questions keep coming about immigration, for example, where your party is saying very clearly you want to bring those numbers down, but you refuse to give specific numbers, which people think on the trust issue means you've got to get out later on. If you win, you can say, well, we were never specific. And that's just you being careful so you don't have anything to refer back to. Why not talk numbers?
Because people have promised numbers and have failed to reach those targets. You've just said in your package earlier around migration is set to fall. But we've got a programme which is about an industrial and skills strategy so that we get the skills we need in things like social care, where we have visas that are a high level, because we don't have the skills in the UK to cover that. So we have to put those programmes in place in order to bring net migration down further. We won't have a figure for that, and we're being very honest, but numbers will come down significantly if you have a plan to tackle it. And we do have a plan to tackle it, and that's how we think that we'll bring those numbers down further, by having the skills in our economy here in the UK so that we can fill those vacancies, because our economy will suffer if we don't have those skills and we have those vacancies. And our industries are telling us quite categorically that they're suffering because we don't have the skills in our economy. And that's why Labour's committed to that skills agenda, to give people real opportunity to go into those jobs that are desperately needed.
Well, it's an interesting version of honesty in politics, where your version of honesty in politics is we don't know. And that's being honest. And people might want something. They might want something, but whereby they can hold you to account when you are in government. And this way around, you've got no parameters.
Well, we do, and like I say in your package, migration figures are set to fall. We think we can have significant reductions by having a skills plan and an industrial strategy, which we've not seen under the Conservatives. They've relied on overseas skills coming to the country to prop up our economy. What we're saying is we're going to have a skills programme to make sure that people can match those jobs for the economy and the growth that we need in the future. I think that that's credible for people to understand that, and to just spout figures, which we've had from the Conservatives, and they've failed on every single one of those targets, because actually instead of this sticky pasta, here's a headline figure, we're actually putting a detailed plan on how we're going to resolve this issue, and I think voters can understand that.
I mean, this goes across all issues, doesn't it? Because it goes across the NHS, it goes across waiting lists as well. These are all areas where people want tangible change. And if people cannot see commitments on your part, they can see what you hope to do, what you want to do. But if they can't see commitments, then it makes it very difficult for them to judge.
Well, Charlie, you mentioned the NHS, and we have put figures on that. We've said that we'd end the non-dom tax loophole for the super wealthy, which will give us 40,000 extra appointments every week in our NHS to bring down the 8 million people waiting on waiting lists currently across the UK, so that we can clear that backlog before the end of the next Parliament. That's what Keir committed to last night in the leadership debate. So where we can give a figure, because we've costed it and we've got the data that proves it, we have given that commitment, and we do believe we can meet that. So where we believe we can give a figure and be honest with the public and we can meet that target, we are delivering on that.
Angela Rayner, Labour Deputy Leader, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.